So if you do a search on the internet for male pattern baldness or hair loss therapies, some of that stuff, it won't take you long before you run across the term Norwood Scale, Norwood 3, or the dreaded Norwood 7. So in this video, we're going to tell you exactly what that is, where it came from, and what it's used for, and if it's still valid today. But welcome first. My name's Brian. This is my Beards and Banjos YouTube channel. We usually focus on beard care, but over the past year, I've been doing those deep dive and Google searches myself on hair loss therapies and techniques, and I actually had quite a bit of success with that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But the Hamilton Norwood Scale is used to classify the stages of male pattern baldness, or what's it called? Androgenic alopecia. Sounds real technical. So it was invented in the 1950s by James Hamilton, and then was updated in the 1970s by Ottar Norwood. And it's 7 different numbers, 7 different classifications. There's a lot of in between though, right? There's millions of guys out there with a variety of different hair loss. So it's hard to fit that into 7, but it does have its place because you need to get some sort of diagnosis and classifications there to start with to get a baseline. So that's important. It's also really important for research. So if you want to do a research on everybody that's at a Norwood 3 to see if they respond, it might be different than if you're at a Norwood 7 and how they respond. So it still has its place for sure, but there's some other techniques that they can do to better classify your amount of hair loss. We'll talk about that coming up, but let's go through those different scales, the different numbers on the scale. So as I said, there are 7 of them. But like 1 and 2 really doesn't count. Number 1 is no significant hair loss or recession of the hairline at all. All right. And then number 2, the Norwood 2, there's a slight recession of the hairline around the temples. All right. This is also known as an adult or a mature hairline. So a lot of times when you're a teenager, your line's almost straight across. But even if in your younger 20s, a lot of times you get just a little bit of recession there, and that's supposed to be kind of normal. I think the problem a lot of times is guys really don't know where that's going to stop at. Like, is it going to keep recessing, or is it going to stop there, and that's going to be their new normal for years and years? All right, Norwood 3. Now we're getting into the first signs of clinically significant balding. That's where your hairline becomes deeply recessed on both temples. So you'll get kind of an M shape there, or it's a bit like if you got a widow's peak especially, it looks more like an M or a U or a V, something like that. The recessed spots are bare, like mine, or it could be sparsely covered, but you've got the receding going on, all right? And a lot of these are referring to the it's only talking about the hairline at the front. And then you start adding in another classification. So it's you're a Norwood 3 vertex, which might be what I was considering. I think I was between a 3 and a 4. And that would be the vertex part is your crown of your head. Right, some guys they lose significantly more hair on the crown of their head, and the front there, the main hairline at the front, stays about the same. So you start adding in the vertex part of that is what they call it, which is the crown area. So if you've got significant thinning there, you're adding in, that would be a 3 with a vertex. All right, next up would be a 4. All right, and 4 is basically just taking all of that a little bit more, so even further recession, and then the part on your crown might be a little bit bigger, or instead of it being sparse, it might be almost completely bald. All right, so that would be a level 4. A level 5 is they're starting to meet in the middle, right? This keeps going back, and then the part on the vertex on your crown keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but there's still a thin strip in between until you get to 6. So 6 is where they kind of meet in the middle, and you have no more strip of hair across there unless it's really, really light. And then how much does the horseshoe part of that, if it kind of sticks up pretty high and it's pretty thick, then that would be a 6. And then 7 would be where it comes on down and you really just have a small strip of hair, and that's all you've got. And that could be really thin on what you've got left. So that's another part about this that's not, it's kind of the gray area. And that would be how thick the hair is that's remaining. All right, and that's the part that really doesn't go into it. So what are some other things they can do these days? If you'll go consult a dermatologist or someone who specializes in hair care and therapies and techniques and all that stuff, they'll put a light on it, and they'll show you a picture of it, and they'll take videos, and they'll count how many hairs you have in a certain area to kind of get how thick it is. So that's kind of the part that's missing. The scale here, the Norwood scale, is more of a visual thing, and then you can quantify it a little bit more with some of the newer techniques and procedures that they can do. There's also, if you think this is for males, there is a scale for females. I'm not going to go through it. It's called the Ludwig scale, and females usually kind of in the part in the middle kind of gets wider and wider, and that's where the Ludwig scale comes from. All right, how much can you progress if you try to reverse this? The best thing to do is to try not to keep going down the scale. So to prevent more hair loss, you've got your finasteride and other DHT blockers, keeps the hair loss from progressing down the scale. And then the hard part is trying to go backwards on it. Can you go back from a 3 back to a 2? Well, 3 and 2 really have the same hairline in the front, and the therapies, the minoxidil and some of the other therapies really works well on the crown area. In fact, over the last 9 months, I've just about regrown, at least where it's obvious, a lot of my crown areas. You can see in this picture. But my hairline in the front really hasn't changed very much. I can see some little hairs there on some of the therapies, but it's really hard to get a hairline to go forward on that. Oh, by the way, there's one other classification you can throw in. It's called the Norwood Class A. And that's a variation of the Norwood scale. And instead of becoming recessed in the corners, basically the whole hairline goes back all together in a unified row there. A lot of times I think about several, and maybe hairstyle as well, but several African Americans like Stephen A. Smith, basically his hair straight across, it just keeps recessing up. Derek White, who plays for the Celtics, kind of the same thing. He shaved his hair off now, but it was kind of all together, but his hairline was just really high, and it wasn't recessed on the corners. So that's really it. There's a little bit of gray area, but it's also a nice scale that you can use to diagnose. What would you consider your Norwood scale number? I think I was between a 3 vertex and going a little bit further, maybe towards a 4. I think I've backed that up a little bit. Now I'm more between I guess I'm a 3 there without the vertex part as much. That's where I'm at. Let me know where you're at, and make sure to stay tuned for some more videos about hair care and beard care. And thank you so much for joining me. See you later.